Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. This is where top performers share their secrets to help you achieve your personal and professional goals. I'm your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my seriously amazing guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights to take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast really is a must listen, and it's because of my guests. So whether you're tuning in for entrepreneurial tips, career advice, or personal development strategies, get ready to turn inspiration into action, challenges into triumphs, and dream into reality. So today's show, I'm really delighted to welcome from the Netherlands, Rich Habets, and he joins us to share, how he helps people gain a new perspective on life and business. And as a founder and lead coach at Insight Inc., Rich is a master at fostering meaningful discussions, be it one-on-one or with teams, and all without making anyone feel wrong. And that is so important. And we're going to be talking about that. It's too easy when you're in the catbird seat to just, keep on talking and not really listen to what you're saying to somebody, even if your intentions might be good. It just happens. So what sets Rich apart in the leadership and coaching world is his knack for propelling clients who are already formidable to even greater heights. And he is known as a silent yet powerful ally behind the scenes, and he plays a key role in their journeys. And Rich's mission is crystal clear: to assist others into tapping in to their untapped potential, transforming their lives into beacons of success, growth, and personal accomplishment. Welcome to Your Partner in Success, Rich. It's good to have you here.
Wow, thank you. What an introduction. Thank you, Denise. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah. Well, you were good, and I have to tell the audience, we had you scheduled for, I think it was last week, and you had just returned from kind of a whirlwind trip, and for some reason our tech failed. And I was a little bit relieved by that because I didn't want you to show up tired and, pushed or rushed. So here we've had a little time to relax, and I'm excited to have you here. So tell us, how do you show up in the world other than what I just described?
Well, what people really need to know about me is that I'm the great experimenter, right? I never understood that about myself. But the older I get, I start to see that I've made so many mistakes in my life, including with my clients. I've used to be a management consultant. That's how I started out when I left college. And what I did wrong in the beginning, what I thought at least what I did wrong is I just love experimenting. I just love doing things, testing things, trying out things. It's no surprise. I like gadgets. I like new things. But I tended to make myself a bit wrong when something didn't go well. And what I found out over the past 5 years, really, is the value of all of that testing that didn't work. Because my clients, you said, I get paid for helping them get to see where they get in their own way, or where they're doing things that are not helpful and not empowering. I mostly help them not to make the mistakes that I've made. And I never really understood the value of that, but it's so valuable to have somebody who knows how it works, who's basically seen it all. Well, it's impossible to see it all, but a lot. And to just help people not make the same mistakes that you've made. And today I was reading a newspaper. I was actually I was getting my winter tires on my car, and next to that place there's a McDonald's, right? So I went into the McDonald's for some coffee, and I read in the paper that Charlie Munger died.
He did a couple of days ago. Brookshire, yeah, 90. Wasn't he almost 100 years old?
I don't know, really old, really.
Yeah.
But he was also a really wise guy, right? Really wise, down to earth guy. And there was a quote in the newspaper that said, everybody wants to know why Berkshire Hathaway is so successful. And he said, well, the one reason we're successful is that we don't make costly mistakes. Everybody's out for for the strategies, for the flashy things, right? But he says, we just don't make big mistakes. That's what we do. And I thought, wow.
And, it takes a great deal of self-assurance and understanding who you are and what you do to make that kind of a statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would be terrified to make that kind of a statement because I would immediately call myself out and just wait for everybody else to do it at the same time. So
Yeah.
repeat what he said because that's pretty important.
Well, he said that people always ask us, why are you beating the markets all the time? And how come you're doing well when somebody else is not doing well? He said, our number one strategy is not making big mistakes, preventing people to make big mistakes, stopping the companies that we invest in to make big mistakes. Because if you just do that, you're already doing better than the market.
That's just almost too simple to be true, isn't it? But it's brilliant in its simplicity.
It absolutely is.
Wow.
Especially in a world where we think we constantly have to, run with the things that are new and the things that are flashy. And, he even said like cryptocurrency, right? He talks about cryptocurrency. He says cryptocurrencies are red poison. He said, we don't get in there. But they also missed the technological investments, right? They didn't invest into Microsoft for a long, long time because they didn't understand the business model. And he always said, we don't invest in things that we don't understand. And of course, people say, well, you missed out, but it also prevented him from making a lot of mistakes.
Well, and again, that's a very powerful statement. If you don't understand it, you probably should at least wait until you have a better understanding or take the time to learn it and understand it and then say yay or nay. But don't just jump in because it's, shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. And our minds, at least some minds, we always look for the new and the novel and the things that are flashy and what's the newest technology and AI. I need to jump into AI. We all have a bit of fear of missing out of all this stuff. And then there's this wise guy, Charlie Munger, and he says, just prevent yourself from making the big mistakes and you'll be fine. Right?
I'm going to have to write that on my whiteboard and look up at it multiple times a day. Just, entrepreneurs, this. I know that any of us who are doing our own thing, building our own businesses, helping other people, we make mistakes. We fail every day, multiple times a day. It might be small, it might be a whopper. It may be, oh my God, I'm going to have to go sit outside and eat dirt, type of a whopper. But we fail all day long, but we learn. At least I'm hoping, as you said, we learn from those mistakes. And in a way, it seems to me like you cherish those mistakes because now they put you on a completely different path where you can help other people because you've been there, done that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, in the past, I had judgments towards myself. Oh, you'll never learn. Don't you get it? Other people are smarter. And if that's your position towards your mistakes, then you don't learn. You get stuck in making yourself wrong, other people wrong, the environment wrong, whatever. But the only way you can grow is by really getting out of your self-judgments and really see, hey, what did I learn? How can I use everything to learn from? And those are the people that generally just move ahead.
But why don't we all do that? I mean, again, it seems so simple. It seems so common sense. Never mind. I just figured it out. Common sense is not that common.
No, 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 no. How did you say that? There's a quote by Ross Brawn. Do you know Ross Brawn, Formula One guy?
Yes. Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah. So I once saw an interview with him, and his team a couple of years ago, they won the Formula One World Championship with a team that only existed for 1 year, that had basically no budget, but they beat everybody, right? And they asked him for the secret, and he said, "Well, the secret is that it's common sense."
Right.
And the interviewer said, well, common sense. Doesn't everybody have common sense? He says,
Nope.
especially in Formula One, common sense is the most uncommon thing. We all want to make it more complex. We want to overanalyze it. And he says, there's nothing less common than common sense. And that goes back to the Charlie Munger thing, because he was
Right.
also a common sense guy, right?
And critical thinking, that seems to be in short supply these days.
Yeah, yeah. Even thinking at all. Most people don't think. Most
I know.
people just repeat their echo chamber.
I'm afraid you're right. And I hate to agree with you on that, even though I've said it myself, because, we don't want to be unkind or cruel to our fellow man, but seriously, stop and think. Take a breath.
Hmm.
Just, and if you need to, go sit down in the corner and think about what you're doing. Just stop and think. And I don't know, Rich, if it's because we're always in such a hurry or shiny object syndrome, or as you said, echo chamber. Listen, I don't watch the news. I turned off cable 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I won't allow that garbage in my home. I just won't.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's the same reason I don't eat McDonald's every day,
Yeah.
right? Or not even every week. It's also that I don't put certain junk thoughts in my mind, right? I don't put junk food in my body. I don't put junk thoughts in my mind because they slow me down, they stop me. And that's not what I'm up for. That's not my thing, what I'm out for. I want to have an amazing life where I make a difference, where I am a great dad, a great husband, a great coach for my clients and consultant. I want to help companies grow, people grow. And I get in my own way when I allow certain thoughts in there. They just disempower me.
They do. And listen, and I know you know this, we all have that internal dialogue going on all the time. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm fat, I'm ugly, I don't feel good. I've got it. That whiny kid voice that's in your head. And I'll tell you, in the world, if anybody, let's say I was in a Walmart parking lot, spoke to me in the way that I speak to my own self, I would need bail money. I'd be in jail. So stop with the negative self-talk. Stop, think, and, switch it around. Say, well, I've made mistakes. Boy, have I made some mistakes, but here's what I learned. And this is how I can make it different. And that's what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go a bit deeper into that, we will never get rid of that internal critic. I call
No.
it the onboard consultant, right? It always has an opinion.
I like that better than whiny brat. I'm going to borrow that.
I always, when I work with my executive clients, I always tell them, look, do you ever hire a consultant? And they say, of course we do, because they've all worked with McKinsey or Boston Consulting Group or one of those companies. And I say, so when you have a consultant, and no matter how much you pay them a day, sometimes they're like 3,000 a day, right? $3,000 or euros a day. So do you take everything they say and do you implement it? Or do you still get a bit critical? Do you still bring your own thinking to it? And I said, of course, because these people, they don't know everything about my business. I'm the CEO. I know more. I said, okay. And that makes sense. That's good. Then why do you take your thinking as if it's always true? Because your
Oh,
thinking is basically the same as that consultant. Your onboard consultant has opinions about everything. Why do you take that as the truth? And then they go,
damn.
right?
Right. And honestly, as I get older and wiser, and I'm saying that with air quotes, I'm not sure we all get older. I'm not sure how much wiser we can all get, but I will catch myself having that onboard consultant conversation. And I realized this a few weeks ago. I was working on an Excel spreadsheet and I was going through, my final quarter, what has to happen, what needs to, where am I, and what's going to happen in 2024. And for some reason, I went down a rabbit hole and I was convinced that something had happened. And I think it had to do with the purchase of my home. And I just knew that it happened in this particular year. I was off by 2 years, but I
Mm,
believed it. I believed that my narrative, my self narrative was true until I was able to find documents and find out I was off by 2 years. So we have to be careful about what we tell ourselves to believe, is my point.
yeah, yeah. I always call that, sometimes I have weird language, right? But I always call that what's in your listening. What's in your listening, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people what's in your listening, and they always tell me, what do you mean, what's in your listening? And look, who we are is we're always in a relation. We always have a conversation going on in our mind, and that conversation is about ourselves. We have a conversation with ourselves about
Oh, yeah.
ourselves. We have a conversation with ourselves about our partners. We have a conversation with ourselves about the government. It's all a conversation. And all these conversations have been formed in probably the first 24 years of our lives, right? We've made decisions about how things are, what's good, what's bad, what's nice, what's not nice, what I like, what I don't like, what I agree with, what I don't agree with. By the time we're about 24, 25, we're basically set for life if we don't distinguish that it's a conversation anymore. Real growth, real freedom comes from not making those conversations wrong, but really writing down, how do I see myself, and write that down. For instance, write down all the judgments that you have about yourself. Like, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm not smart, I'm loyal, but on the other hand, if I find a better partner, I'll leave my partner, right? You just
Oh,
write
God.
down all those things. And most people don't do that because it's confronting. And they have an opinion about themselves, like, oh my God, look what's in my mind. But the moment you write it on paper, you go like, oh, this is the internal software that runs me. This is the stuff. It's like Windows 95, right? Even
And
though
there's
it's
a glitch,
2023.
right?
Hmm?
There's a big glitch going on there. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but can you imagine, right? We're in 2023 right now. A lot
right.
of people have Windows 95, even though it's 2023. So by now, there are much better operating systems. They're much faster. They're much more efficient. They're much, more suited for these times. But yet they stay with the operating system of like 95. In 95, that worked. It was a great operating system. But isn't it time for an upgrade?
Oh,
And in
yeah.
order to do the upgrade, you need to get rid of the old one and install a new one. Right? A new operating system.
Right. And again, common sense. Or, at least critical thinking. So, well, this isn't working for me anymore. What's my next step? And don't just go slamming into walls.
And then blaming everybody for your slamming into a wall, because that's what
Right.
most people do. They make themselves wrong or other people wrong why things are not working anymore. Well, your operating system might not be the best operating system. Why don't you upgrade that one? That's what freedom is.
You're exactly right. And I was listening last night to As a Man Thinketh and Wallace Wattles and Audible, and so much of what you're referencing now, I was listening to basically in my sleep. I've heard the book before. It's several books in one, and I'm aware of all of them, but you're tapping on something that I was listening to yesterday. It's like, that's interesting because it's just, you never know what's going to come out during a conversation. And that leads me to ask you, I know that you really do help, you know, with your clients and with other people, showing them how not to prove that everything is wrong, but how to prove everything is right. And I may not have said that very well, but I hope you understood where I was going.
Can you say more?
Well, you're a master of fostering meaningful discussions. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is, can you share some insights into your approach, especially when you're guiding clients to be introspective, which we're talking about, and discover valuable insights within the words of others, because we do listen. I mean, we're bad about talking to ourselves. We can get really ugly when we're talking to ourselves, but we
Mm-hmm.
also take it to heart when other people are talking about or to us. And sometimes the takeaway that we got was absolutely not the right takeaway. So how do you help people say, was that really true? Is that really what happened? Is that how you feel? How do you help people with that?
I can give
My
you a good
question is,
example.
how do we get out of our own way? How do you help people get out of our own, the bus that's coming, that's going to hit us in about 2 seconds, and we're the bus. We're both. We're us and we're the bus. We're about to get clobbered.
Yeah, so let me share a story. So a while ago, a couple of years ago, there was this a leader of a company, and he called me up and he said, Rich, my team, they don't work. It doesn't work. They're not being held accountable. I always have to do the work. I have to do the heavy lifting. They never come up with ideas. Can you fix them? Right? Because it's always other people that need to be fixed. and
Yeah. Ask
and I
any
said,
ex-wife. It's not her fault. Trust me.
it's always never me. It's always always somebody else. So I said, I don't know if I can help you. When do you have your next team meeting? And he said, well, we're going to have a 3-day retreat next week in some little German castle. I said, well, can I just sit in? So we started, and the guy kicked off the meeting, and he talked a lot. And he said this and that, and this is where the market is going, and blah, 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 blah. And we need to do this and that, and this is what we need to fix. And then he sat down, and people started talking, right? People started having conversations, bringing up ideas. And every time somebody would come up with an idea, he would just jump in and say, no, 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 we tried that 5 years ago. It doesn't work. That we don't need to talk about that. And then somebody else said something, and he said, well, thank you for that, but I have information from headquarters. That's not the direction the company's going in. So that idea is not really something that I want to spend time on. And you could literally see the team, they went like, okay, we can't win with this guy. So just let's shut up, because everything we say, he's got something to say about it. So I called for a break. I said, okay, let's have a coffee break. And at the coffee machine, I put my hand around him. I said, look, for the next 2 hours, I want you to shut up. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I just want you to shut up for you. I said, let your team talk. And no matter how much you think it's not smart, or it's not useful, or it's not valuable, no matter what you think, don't say anything. Just let the conversation go, even if it gets uncomfortable. And he said, yeah, I can do that. So I made sure I sat next to him, and people started talking, and he started getting nervous. I could see it. He started wiggling his feet and looking at his watch, and he wanted to talk. And I just tapped him on the knee a couple of times. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. And he said, yeah, but I have to. I said, no, you don't have to. So at a certain moment, he couldn't hold himself anymore. And he just said, guys, come on. We just wasted an hour talking about this. It's not going to work. We tried that in the past. And I said, okay, everybody, time out again. And he was furious. He was furious, Denise. He just, at the same coffee machine, he said, how can you do this? You make me look bad in front of my people. I'm losing my authority, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, I get it. I get that's how it looks, but let it sink in. And he said, well, I don't know if I want to continue with the coaching and with the mentoring, blah, blah, blah. So 3 weeks later, he calls me up and he said, Rich, holy shit. I said, what do you mean? He said, I never saw what I did. I do this every time. I am somebody, if I don't contribute, I feel like I'm not doing a good job. I'm the fixer. I'm the problem solver. But what I see is that when I'm a people leader, that way of being doesn't help me, because I shut people up. I don't allow their self-expression to flourish. And when I do that, people just, they fall flat. And it's no wonder they don't take accountability, because I know everything better. It's no wonder they have no ideas, because, hey, it's always my ideas. And I've always struggled with that my whole life. When I was a content expert, that was great. That was fantastic. But it doesn't help me anymore in my leadership role. And I was like, oh, he reflected and he saw it. We
And
started.
he understood eventually, as he sat back and watched, that there was never going to be any collaboration as long as he was always having to be right.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And he thought it was the team, right? I'm not saying the team is perfect, but he got in the way of all the creativity in that team. So once he saw that, he when people see something, it doesn't mean they automatically are good at it. So we started a 3-month coaching project, and he more and more started to see that he has a fixed way that things have to be. Things have to be a certain way, and if they're not a certain way, he jumps in and he makes it a certain way. And of course, what happens is that people who are not that way, people who think from a different perspective, they don't feel appreciated. They don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. So they leave the team, or they go find another job, or they shut up. And what you get is a team with the boss who always speaks. 6 months later, he got a promotion to a global role because now he was able to bring his smarts to a global role, but also being very much aware of his internal dialogue of always having to fix, always having to jump in, always having to take responsibility. Because people only change when they see what they're doing, that it's not serving them. You first need to see that. You cannot change anything if you don't know where you're coming from.
And you don't know if you're harming other people or relationships, whether they're personal or business, or even talking to somebody in the grocery store. If somebody says something to you in the grocery store, of all places, and you immediately correct them,
Yeah. Yeah.
the energy just, flew out the window. And
Yeah. And
people,
there's no
they
connection.
don't see that. No, no. Well, good for him. So I have to ask you, how did you start doing this kind of work? Because it's very specific coaching.
It is. Well, this one was. I graduated in computer science, right? I was always interested in how do systems work and how do you build systems and stuff like that. I've always been interested in how do things fit together, right? Like bigger picture thinking. And in computer science, that was nice. So I did that for about 6 months. Then I went to management consulting because I was interested, how do companies work? How does leadership work? What does a good company look like? What's a bad company? I've always been looking at those things. And in 2009, I just was kind of bummed out by my job as a management consultant and interim manager because I saw that my company wanted me to apply certain blueprints to companies and certain ways of looking at things. And I've never been somebody who thinks in one way. So I said goodbye to my then job. And I said, you know what? This is not for me anymore. Got my own coach, and I got divorced in that same time, which, by the way, is something I never recommend to anybody. Don't do those things in the same year because it's always, more impactful than you think.
Been there, done that.
In the same year also?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I never met anybody else who did that. Wow.
Oh,
Kudos to you
yeah.
that you survived.
Oh, I survived and I thrived, but they
Yeah.
both had to be done. I had no other choices. If I needed to get out of my own way, and I was miserably married. So I just, like you, I have a computer science degree. I got my degree, started my little business. There was nobody to help me with it, but I'm one of those people. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to fix it, break it, fix it, break it, get back up, fix it, break it. And I've learned as I've gone, but yeah, I did both in the same year. And I'm not sorry. It had to be done.
Oh, so similar.
Yeah. Computer
It's
science, who knew? I mean, it's just,
yes.
and I was one of the very few females in my class, and I
Yeah.
didn't care. I just needed to do what I needed to do.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And also what you said, fix it, break it, fix it, break it. That is my pattern also. I needed to break stuff in order to be able to fix it.
Oh, yeah. I break
Right.
stuff all the time. I break myself all the time. I'll
Yeah.
sit in, and this is no joke. I will often raise my left hand in the air and smack it with my right hand and say, "Bad Denise." Then I take a break and then I go back and I try to fix it. But you have to keep a sense of humor about it all.
Yeah. And I bet you're also very resilient.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
have to be.
you do, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur. I'm not a coach. I'm not sure that I have the patience to be a coach. I'm a great consultant, though. And, I can say that with, not even trying to be humble. I'm very good at it. But I had to learn from pulling myself up off the floor and say, get moving. Stop
Mhm.
whining about it.
Yeah. 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 Well, actually, I don't consider myself to be a coach. I consider myself somebody who's much more than a coach. I always call myself a trusted advisor.
Oh, I like that better.
Yeah. Have you seen the Godfather movie, the first one?
No, I'm not real. I read everything. I'll read the back of a cereal box, and I don't even eat cereal, but I don't necessarily watch TV or movies. I did watch the Harry Potter movies, so there's
Oh,
that.
that's a good start.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
just
what about Godfather inspired you?
So to paint a picture, so there's the Godfather is about this guy called Don Corleone, right? He's the head of the mafia in New York, and he's got a couple of sons. So every time Don Corleone needs to think about something, when he has a problem or when he needs to solve something, he talks about it. But his sons always want violence. They always want to solve everything with violence, right? So what Don Corleone does, he doesn't listen to his sons. He goes back to the bed to a little room, and he goes there with a guy called Tom Hagen. And Tom Hagen is the consigliere. They call him the consigliere of Don Corleone. Tom Hagen is able to listen deeply to what Don Corleone is saying. And then Tom just needs to say one or two sentences, and Don Corleone knows what to do. That's what I call a trusted advisor. It's somebody who listens deeply, who understands where you are, who understands your world, who can really see where you're getting in your own way. And he just points at one thing. Hey, have you thought about this? Or what are you doing there? And maybe this is a mistake. Or have you tried that? And the other person goes like, whoa, where have you been all my life? And they're ready to move ahead. That's what I call a trusted advisor. You know, this guy I just shared the story about, I just pointed him that he always needed to be right, and that's getting in his way. When you're a human, when you're a people leader and you try to be always right, you're not a people leader. Your game is to be always right. And it doesn't work as a people leader because people don't feel seen. It's just one thing, right? Changed the guy's life. And that's what I like about being a trusted advisor. Sometimes it's a bit of coaching, sometimes it's mentoring, sometimes it's training, sometimes just straight up telling somebody, stop doing this and start doing that, like a consultant would do.
And honestly, when you started telling that story, my mind went straight to he didn't learn a thing. This could not have ended well, but it did. So this man was able, even after he was sitting there tapping his knee, and you were tapping him and saying, stop, breathe, listen. He actually took a moment or several moments to stand back and go, well, I'll be darned.
Yeah. Well, not in that exact moment, 3 weeks later.
Right. But he
Yeah.
took the time. I
Yeah.
mean, it could have, if he was really committed to being a boss and not a leader, he would have just kept on doing what he was doing.
Yeah, and let me share one thing that this has been one of my biggest lessons. Nobody likes a pleaser.
No, they don't.
Nobody likes a pleaser. Yet, if you look at the world, we all want to please people. We all want to belong. We want to hear that we're doing well. We want to hear that, we're a good boy or a good girl, or, even it's something that we carried over from childhood because it was important to be liked by your parents, right? So you take that over from childhood and you go into business and you try to lead people and you try to please them by not holding them accountable. Another story, I had this guy, he ran a business. Oh, he ran a team of investment bankers. So every Monday morning they would have a meeting and they would all start at 9. And there was one guy always be late. He always came in on his motorcycle. So they'd start at 9. He would walk in 9:05. He would walk into the meeting room. He was wearing this leather bike suit, right? And he would just take his helmet off and he would and the guy would always be, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm late. Next time but the boss would not hold the guy accountable because he really liked the guy as a person. Now, can you imagine what that did to all the other people in the room who were there at 9:00?
Oh, yeah. The resentment had to have been boiling over.
Exactly. Why do we have to be on time and that guy gets to be late? So the respect for the boss just goes down immediately. And then the boss comes to me and he says, why don't people respect me? Well, I have an idea. Because you don't hold people accountable. And people really don't respect people who please or who try to be nice. People respect people who speak straight. And with straight, I'm not meaning venting. I'm not talking about making somebody wrong, but just really that there's no difference between what's in your mind and what comes out of your mouth in a way that moves the other person forward, that helps the other person, not breaks them down, but helps them.
How did he finally say, listen, dude, show up or go find another job?
I don't know. I worked with that team for 3 months. The other guy, I think he left. The guy with the motorcycle, he left for another team because he had very specific knowledge that he could basically take anywhere. So the guy had many, many options.
Mm.
But he never actually stood up to him.
See, I find that interesting. I mean, if you are reading the room, and as a leader, you should be reading the room, right? You should be looking at all of your people, looking at and physically looking at them. Are, eyebrows going up? Are, the corners of your mouth turning down? You can read those micro expressions and kind of figure out where you are going right or going wrong.
Yeah. If
Interesting.
you're sensitive to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can even do that on the phone. You can tell by people's voice inflections. Are they interested? Are they engaged? Do they hate you? Are they thinking, oh, geez, I need to go outside and walk the dog. I don't want to be here. You can tell if you're listening properly, if you're watching properly. And I guess that leads me to my next question is when you're dealing with people and you're helping people, what are some of the different ways that you can watch and observe and find out, outside of, the one that you told us about where you could see instantly that this man was just going to break everybody down and not know he was doing it? What are some of the things that you've learned over time that you just now it's automatic to you for you to be observing?
Do you mean like patterns that we all have?
Yeah, the
That's
patterns. I mean, you said that you would fail all the time, break and fail, and do the same thing that I do. But again, you're in a very specific type of advising. And you said that you do what you do because you made so many mistakes as you were
Mhm.
going up. So where have you noticed that you're doing specific things that maybe other advisors, trusted advisors, are not doing that are now just they're so natural to you, but they weren't in the beginning because you had to become aware?
Yeah. That's an excellent question. So the first part of my working life was all about hardcore business, right? As a management consultant, I would go with teams and we would do like the whole process analysis and KPI dashboards and see where we can optimize, where we can put in some automation and all that, really the hardcore business stuff. The second part was that, wait a minute, how is it possible that people get together for 3 to 5 days to think about a company strategy, for instance? And then, smart people with degrees and stuff like PhDs and really smart people, really experienced people. And they come out with a strategy and the strategy bombs. How is that possible? Right? How come? What is it that, because the strategy looks amazing? Well, the key is that people never in business, they don't look at who is the one that is creating the strategy.
Aha,
Because
that's where I wanted to go.
yeah, yeah. And that's my second part. Who is the person that creates the strategy? Because if you have a fixed way of looking at a business, I can almost predict what you're going to come up with, right? I had a guy in one of my retreats. This guy always looks for something to solve. So he's constantly butting in with other departments. You should do this. The quality there should be better, even though he's not part of quality. So he's spread out very thin. His boss started complaining. He said, look, guy, I'm not paying you to solve everybody else's problems. What I pay you for is to take the big rocks in your department and move them forward on a global scale, right? He was for a logistics company, worked for the logistics company. And so the boss said, Rich, can you work with him? So I worked with him. And it turns out that there's a reason why this guy has a task list that is as long as, the Mississippi River, because he doesn't know who he is when he doesn't have anything to do. His value comes from having something to do. The moment he's got nothing to do, he will make up some drama or he will break something so he can fix it again. But as long as he doesn't see that's the underlying pattern, it's a compensation pattern for something that happened in the past. As long as he doesn't see that, I can give him advice, strategy, tips and tricks. I can have him read a book about how to do better time management. The underlying software is faulty. If we don't fix that, then there's no new way of seeing things for this guy, right? So most people live in this paradigm, two paradigms. First paradigm people live in is do, have, be, right? So first do, then have, then be. So an example, do, I need to work hard. Have, so to get the promotion, right? So I get to have that promotion. And to be is then I can be happy. That's a paradigm a lot of people live in. Do, have, be. Need to work hard so I can get the promotion and then I'll be happy. Or I need to have that relationship so I can be married and then I'll be forever happy. Right?
Yeah. You know what I think about that. But
Yeah.
and you said something important there, because I see this, so especially during wedding season. I was a jeweler for a long time, so I met a lot of brides and grooms, and then I met them in the divorces when they were trying to resell the very expensive
Yeah.
rings that they bought. But it was always like, oh, I just can't wait. We're going to be so, and I'm like, well, what are you right now? Why
Yeah.
aren't you happy now? Why are you putting this future date on your happiness? I have never understood that.
Because we all make our happiness everything. We think we need to do X in order to be something. I need this amount of money to be safe. I need this relationship to feel happy. The actual model, how it really works, it's not the do, have, be model. It's the be, do, have model, right?
I'm
In
writing it
my
down.
in
Do,
my
have,
relationship with
be, do, have. Is that right?
be, do, have. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
So
Let's
you
talk about
start
that.
from who you're being, right? So if I think that I need to be in a relationship so that somebody can love me so I can feel love, my God, I just took a wrong exit,
Get a cat. Seriously.
right?
Get a cat. Get a dog. You don't
Yeah, but
don't go
how
down
many
that
people
road.
do that, right? So they say, oh, I don't feel satisfied anymore in my job. Well, that's because it doesn't work that way. A job can't give you satisfaction. How it really works is you bring satisfaction to your job, right? And being a satisfied worker, your doings, your acts, the things that you're doing, they come from a place of satisfaction. So you're going to be much more positive. You're going to be much more effective. You're going to be much more connected to people because you come from this place of satisfaction generated inside of you. You're not waiting for the people and the world to give that to you like a victim. You bring that, you generate it inside of you. And then you do things coming from satisfaction. And guess what? The people that bring satisfaction to their job, that bring energy to their job, they're going to get promoted much quicker. So you're going to have that promotion as a result of who you are, not as a result of something that you do.
Right. It's a ripple effect. Listen,
It
if you
is.
show up and you're sour and you're cranky and you're constantly running for the coffee machine because you're tired, you wear people out. And they're not going to come to you when they need advice, or if they need, for you to look at something and say, well, you know, what's going to happen here? How can I help you? You're going to be avoided or fired.
Yeah. Or in a relationship, when you think,
Yeah.
oh, I don't feel the same love anymore. Well, you're doing that actually. And by the way, I'm in no way am I saying that people should stay in loveless relationships, but I'm saying, what if you, instead of getting love from your partner, what if you just started bringing love to relationship and see what that does?
We are mirrors, aren't we?
We
I
are.
mean, we mirror what we see other people do. People see us, and we're mirrors. I mean, it's hard to explain what I'm thinking, but if we are seeing the same thing from ourselves all the time and we don't know that we're doing it, it's time to look in a different mirror,
Yeah.
get some other, different advice. So, Rich, when you are propelling clients, and I love that term, and they're already formidable, and you're helping them to get to even greater heights. We've talked a bit about some of the ways that you help, but are there other things that you can share with our audience that they'll say, oh, well, that makes perfect sense? I mean, we're talking about, fostering meaningful discussions. We're talking about not being the pain in the fanny guy in the corner who is always going to be right. Where else can people look at themselves before they look at anybody else and say, I'll be darned, I do that. Maybe I should update my operating system.
Yeah. Well, a very quick and easy way to do that is a simple process. It's just 4 steps. And if you do this and you practice it, because in the beginning it's not automatic, it's going to take some time. You need to bring some awareness to it. It's basically this: stop, right? During the day, stop. Notice what's in your thinking. Just notice what's in your thinking. And there might be something like, oh, I need to go to a meeting. I don't really want to go. Or I don't like my job anymore. Or, oh, I hate the weather where I am, right? Just stop. Notice what's in your listening. Then see for yourself, when that's in my mind, what does my reality look like? Oh, I feel a bit depressed, or I feel unhappy, or I feel scared, or I feel whatever. Okay. Can you give up the thought? Can you just give it up? Like you turn off a radio station. Can you just give it up? Can you just turn off to another station? Just give it up. You don't need to override it or whatever. Just give up the thought. Now that you're empty again and present, what's your next step? So stop, notice what's in your thinking, give it up. And I promise, if you have a thought you're not willing to give up, I promise you, you're getting something from holding on to that thought, right? Most people don't give up thoughts because they want to be right about something or somebody. But once you give up the thought, turn down the volume on it, you'll bring yourself back to presence. And when you're present, you got everything going for you. You got your energy, you got your perspective, and you make the best decisions from that perspective.
You can. And listen, I have a trick that I call it the open refrigerator door syndrome trick. Because I'm in front of a computer all the time. I think in code. I dream in code. It's bizarre. But every once in a while, I'll catch myself in a loop and think, I'm looking at a piece of code or I'm looking at something that I'm writing or I'm just irritated. Who knows what's going on? And I will deliberately stand up, leave my office, which is in my home, go open my refrigerator doors, big double door refrigerator, and I stick as much of my body as I can in the refrigerator. You know why? Because every time you find yourself in front of the refrigerator, you don't know how you got there, what you're doing, why that refrigerator door is open. It's a good way to just shock myself or move myself out of whatever's irritating the bejeebers out of me. And I do it deliberately multiple times a day. And I call it my little meditation moment. So when I do come back in here, and I may, wander from the refrigerator outside and stand under the pecan trees, there's no telling, but I deliberately take a break. And when I come back, and maybe it was a 5-minute break, but I'm refreshed. And that negative thought is gone. It's in the
Yes.
refrigerator. It's somewhere else, but I
Yeah.
didn't bring it back with me.
Yeah, that's what we call a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yes.
right. And I do it all
Yeah.
the time on purpose.
Yeah. So I just met like 30 minutes ago, I mentioned this whole thing that who we are for ourselves is in this conversation we're having with ourselves about ourselves, right? People call that an identity or a personality or a character. It's all the same. It's basically how do we talk to ourselves about ourselves and how much do we believe those thoughts? A miracle will happen if you will start to distinguish that not as who you are, but is something that has been conditioned into you. It's been conditioned. It's been given to you by your culture, your parents, things you ran into as a kid, right? That conversation you're having, it's not you. It's just something. It's just neurons in your brain that are linked together that keep firing the same patterns on a biological level. When you start to see that who you are is just a bunch of thoughts, and that you have the power to consciously shape that conversation you're having with yourself, you can do that. You can do that. You can start to say, hey, look, every time I'm around women, let's say, right, example, every time I'm around women, now let me take an actual example. I'm going to mention something from my life. When I was about 6, 7 years old, right, I was playing in the kitchen with my cousin, and we're having a good time. I was a loud kid. I was playing, and we were having lots and lots of fun. So my mom walks into the kitchen, and she says, oh, Rich, are you in love with your cousin? And I just felt like, oh, that hurts, right? I just felt embarrassed. Like, Mom, how can you say that to me? I just feel embarrassed. And as a kid, you cannot deal with these powerful emotions, right? So in order to deal with it, you make something up that, so you basically twist the truth about yourself so you don't have to deal with this painful emotion. So in that moment, what I made up is, when I'm loud, I'm too much for people. So I cannot be loud. I have to be careful to not be too much for people. And as a young kid, that gets programmed into you like hard, in a stone tablet. From that moment on, who you become is somebody who's careful. And I became a careful kid. So whenever we would be at a social event or with friends, I would never be the one who spoke up because, hey, I don't ever want to feel that embarrassment anymore of being, like somebody from an authority figure would say to me something embarrassing. I would never do that again. So I decided as a winning strategy or a survival strategy, I made up, let's be careful so I will never, ever have to experience those feelings again. So I became careful. I was a careful kid. Until 10, I didn't speak to any girl because I didn't want to be rejected. Right? But when that becomes clear that that's just programming, it's just programming. It's just something you made up in the moment to deal with something you couldn't deal with. And you get to see, wait a minute, if I made that up in the past and it doesn't help me anymore, what else can I consciously make up that will actually help me, that will empower me? And that's
It's
freedom.
interesting. It is. I mean, I was a very quiet child. In fact, I identify as a highly committed introvert. And I am. I need to be left alone 98% of the time. I'm not shy and I don't have any social anxiety. And when I'm out and about, people would never mistake me for an introvert. But I need to be left alone. And listening to you talk about your childhood, I'm digging back into my early past, wondering what had me like that, because I was the oldest of a whole bunch of kids and they were all extroverts and they drove me crazy. I mean, just the noise and the chaos. And it's just, I still shudder when I think about it. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I don't dislike people, although I do find that, being around people, unless they're fascinating, I'm only good for about 59 3/4 minutes because I get worn out very quickly. I get drained very quickly. But something that you just said inspired me to remember, and I can't remember if this is Carolyn Mize or whoever I heard this from, and it pops into my head all the time. And the question is that true? Is it really true? And once you take a moment to kind of dig in to say, well, is it an old memory? Is it, like, for instance, I'm joking, but for the longest kind of time as a child, I thought my middle name was Denise and that damn Denise was my first name. It's like that damn Denise because I was always quiet. I always knew everything that the adults were talking about because they never noticed that I was in the room. But I started to ask myself a number of years ago, is that true? And I'll tell you what, that opens up a whole new way of thinking. Once you say, no, it's not true. It's not even close to true. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful, isn't it?
It really was. I mean, we kind of just, we get up in the morning. My mom would say, the devil said, oh God, she's awake. Now what? It's like, oh, geez. But unless we start examining ourselves and what we think are our truths and what we think, we just put our feet forward, we just keep on moving until we hit a really bad wall that has you bleeding from the noggin and you have to make changes.
Yeah. And you can also make changes without having to hit that wall first.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about here. So when and I love what we're talking about. This has just been such an immensely exciting discussion for me. But what inspired you? I mean, we talked a bit about it, but what inspired you to say, I'm going to found Insight Inc. And you've helped, 6,000 individuals, I think you told me, and you
Mhm.
collaborate with, a lot of world-class companies. What inspired you to say, I'm not doing what I'm doing anymore. I'm going to go use my mistakes, my lessons, and I'm going to help other people?
I think it's like an inborn curiosity that I have. I'm always curious. I'm the people call me the eternal experimenter, right?
I love
Um,
that.
The determined experimenter, that was the one actually. So I always experiment. And when I try something, because like in 5 years from now, I'm probably doing something different than I'm doing today. I know it will be with people, but it will be maybe from another angle because I'm always looking for new angles. I'm always looking for new perspectives. I'm always looking for how can I help? How can I make a difference? And that will probably never stop because that's my orientation. I'm always looking at what works, what doesn't work. To give you an idea, it's a funny story. I was with my wife in Munich like last year in December. We were going for a Christmas market, right? One of these German Christmas markets. And we were having lunch at the rooftop bar of this beautiful Bayerische Hof, beautiful hotel in Munich. So we're having lunch. I'm having a club sandwich. My wife has a Caesar salad. Next to us are two people in bathrobes. They just came from the hotel wellness center. So the lady brings us our food. I give her a coupon. And the lady in the bathrobe next to me, she hears that I have a coupon. And she says, "Whoa, I would like a coupon too. What can I get coupons? I love coupons," right? So she just wanted to get free lunch also. So we get to talk. And she tells me, "What do you do?" And we talk about that. And she says, "Oh, Rich, you need to work with my executive team. They're such a mess. Can you work with them?" And in the past, I would just go like, "Yes, let me do that," right? But now I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but let's have a conversation. So we had a conversation, and that turned into a multiple six-figure client. Now, why am I
Coupon.
sharing this? Huh?
It's over a coupon. I love that.
Over a coupon, exactly, on a Sunday afternoon while I'm having lunch with my trip with my wife. My wife even told me, she said, "You're unbelievable, Rich." She said, even on business, even when we're on a weekend, you score a business client. I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not that I'm looking for it. I'm just always curious. When you tell me, can you help me? I don't know, but let's talk. Let's see. Maybe I see something. Maybe I see patterns." And I will always keep doing that. I will always look like for what are you doing that you don't see that doesn't help you? And how can we get that out so that you can come and become free again and you start to do what you really love to do? I'll always do that. Will it be coaching in 5 years from now? I don't know. Maybe I'm running, I don't know. Maybe I have a podcast like you, or maybe I have a TV show like, I don't know, or a Netflix series. So I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's always going to be, what are you doing that I can see that will help you? And it's an ongoing thing. When I was 10, I was curious about who built the pyramids. Right? I read
I'm
like 10
still
books about
curious. I'm still curious about that. I'm not
yeah.
convinced that humans built those, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I still don't have an answer either. No, I don't know.
When I
Like
was a kid, I was going to grow up to be an archaeologist, which is bizarre because I hate dirt and sand. But I was going to be an archaeologist because I was reading at 3. And all of my life, I've read anything I can lay my hands on. And Egypt was always a huge passion of mine. Do I want to go there? Not really. It's hot and sandy, but still,
yes.
I'm fascinated by the history.
Yeah. 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 We're actually very, very, very similar. It's fascinating.
You never know who you're going to meet. Listen, and we're going to run out of time here, but we've got about 5 or 6 more minutes. But what are, I'm not even sure how to ask this. The work that you do, are there any true standout moments when you can say, "Good job, Rich. I am so proud of how that turned out."
Yeah. 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 I have one specific moment. So I used to do a lot of co-facilitating. And there was a moment when I have a lot of energy, right? And we were working with a group, me and my co-facilitator in Warsaw, Poland. And there was one particular management member who was very uninterested in what we had to say. And he made it very clear. He was sighing, he was looking at his watch, he was tapping his foot, and like very, very. And I got a little bit annoyed. So my co-facilitator, she started paying attention to him. And I never do that. When somebody wants the attention, I don't give it, right? Because that's their strategy. They want to interrupt everything. So I speak to the people who want to learn. But she was giving attention to that person. So I started nodding my co-still. I said, "Don't do that. Don't give that guy attention. He just, he wants to interrupt the whole thing." But she kept doing that, and I got kind of upset, and I got more and more upset, and I got very irritated. So I said to everybody, "Okay, everybody, let's have a break. Go to the coffee machine, and come back in 15 minutes." Denise, I was furious. I was so upset. So the people went out of the room. We closed the door. And I said to my co-presenter, a co-facilitator, I said, "If you keep doing that, I'll take my luggage and I'm out of here and you will never, ever see me again. Stop doing that."
That could not have ended well. I can just see her face now.
So she looked at me and she said, "Rich, I see you're upset. Take a minute and then we can talk about this." And because of her kindness, because of her not being triggered, being able to, I can trigger people. Holy shit, I know which buttons to push with my background. I see right through people, right? So I know which buttons to push. But the fact that she said that, I felt so much love for her. I was like, oh my God. And I said, her name's Bobs. I said, "Bobs, oh my God, no, I'm so sorry for judging you. I'm so sorry for being this way. This is not the right way to work with this group. I'm going to get a glass of water and let's talk how we can make an impact and how we deal with that guy who's so impatient, who's so negative." My whole anger was gone because of the fact that she wasn't triggered. And what I learned is that people can trigger you, or I can trigger people, but if they don't answer back, it's like with martial arts, right? If they use that energy to work with you, anything's possible. And you can just disarm somebody with a smile or with understanding and just seeing somebody and acknowledging somebody. And this is what I say to all my leaders in the companies that I work with. It's not about being the smartest, the best, the fastest, the one who makes the most money, who's got the biggest office. It's not about that. That's all nice and kind. But it's all about, can you be with people even when they're not the way you want them to be? Those are the most powerful leaders that I see.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, why was she paying attention to this? He sounds like a total narcissist, but why was she dealing with him? What
Because
was her reasoning?
she felt that that was what was needed. She was, so I've been doing that work for 15 years by then. She was doing the work for 2 years, right?
Oh,
I was kind of mentoring her also. But that's something she's a bit stuck in, to be honest, still. She still gives attention to people who want the attention, and it's not always the best strategy.
I
But in
wouldn't
that
think so.
moment, hmm?
I would not think it would be the best strategy. I'm like you. I'm just like, if you want to be disruptive, you're going to have to turn your face to the wall and talk to the wall because you're not going to get to me.
Yeah, that's what's my strategy. I always speak, you know what a bell curve is, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's always, when you talk about this stuff, there's always a bunch of people that say, "This is interesting, it's fantastic, I'm fascinated." And the big majority, they're like, I'm kind of undecided, but let's see. And then there's this last part who always say, "Oh, soft skills," right? And they think it's just soft skills and it's a bunch of nonsense and it doesn't work. So I never give attention to those people. I give attention to the early adopters. I give attention to the ones who make the difference. And when they start to get results, that big majority, that big part in the middle, they go like, "Hey, wait a minute. They are getting results. We want those results also." And that's the way to bring change to a company or to any organization, basically. You start to work with the people who get the results, and then the other ones will follow. The eternal critics, you will never be able to reach them anyway. So, do I like them? Yeah. Do I love them? Yeah. Do I spend time on them? I try to understand their point of view, but I'm not here to baptize them.
I'm writing that down. That's pithy. I like that. But you're right. Listen, I come across people like that all the time. They're just going to be negative no matter what. That's their personality.
Yeah.
So I will mentally say, God bless you, or as we say in the South, bless their hearts. And that's not a good thing. And if we say, bless your little heart, that means you're too stupid. It'll never wash off. It's really rude. But there are always going to be people who want to show up And there are always going to be people who maybe they're not going to show up now. Maybe it'll be a week from now. Maybe it'll be 5 years from now, but they're going to work at their own pace. You do your best. It's all you can do.
Exactly.
This has been fascinating. Before I let you go, do you have any last minute advice or thought that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. My advice would be listen for the gold. You're always creating things the way you are. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world the way you are. So when you're frustrated, you see all kinds of reasons outside there to be frustrated. When you're happy, you see all kinds of reasons out there to be happy. The power really is in you. It's how are you listening? Can I share a metaphor, a story?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's close with this one. So there's a boy and a girl, they buy a new house, right? So first morning in the house, the girl's standing in her kitchen making coffee. And she looks outside and she sees her neighbor, and the neighbor's walking out with a basket full of laundry, and she's putting the laundry on the line to dry. And the girl looks outside and she goes like, hey, wait a minute, that laundry is still dirty. Doesn't she see that? That's weird. But she lets it go. Next morning, she stands again in the kitchen in the morning making her coffee. Neighbor comes out again. And again, she puts the laundry on the line and she's like, see, I wasn't wrong yesterday. That laundry is still dirty. That white is not white. The colors all look bad. What's wrong with this lady? Is the washing machine not broken? Does she need glasses? What's going on? And on the third day, again, she's in the kitchen. Neighbor comes out, puts out the laundry on the line. So the girl stands there and she's like, unbelievable, huh, this woman. So she calls her husband into the kitchen. She says, hey, guy, look, do you see that? The guy looks out and he says, yeah, I see what's going on. And he walks out. Fourth day, again, she's in her kitchen making her coffee. Neighbor comes out, puts out the laundry on the line, but this time it's clean, right? Totally clean. And the girl looks out, she's like, hey, what happened? Oh, I know. I think my husband went over there and he probably told her that her washing machine is broken or that she needs some new stuff to make it more clean, or I don't know. But I think my husband helped her. She said, hey, hon, come over. Did you go to the neighbor and tell her that she needs to fix her washing machine? And the guy says, no, honey, I just cleaned the window.
That is, I'm laughing like a loon. That is brilliant. That really is. It's perception, isn't it? It's how you perceive things.
Always,
Oh
always.
my goodness. That
And to
is,
some of your listeners, I understand that sometimes you go like, yeah, Rich, but you don't understand my perspective. I'm really into this and this and this. And look, yes, I get that. And I have a lot of compassion for everybody who's there. But ultimately, the power is always inside of you. I saw the news here yesterday about the Ukraine. The whole power network is out. They have no power. They have no gas. They got nothing. And it's freezing cold. And there was this lady on the news that said, you know what? The weather is the weather. I get to determine what I think about the weather. So the weather is great.
exactly. Yeah, I don't worry about, and I've been this way all my life. I don't worry about things that I have absolutely no ability to change. I just look at it, decide how I'm going to perceive it, and keep on moving. I only work at the things that I know I can make change at.
Yes, you have the power. There's no power out there. There's only power in you.
That's exactly right. Well, Rich, I have thoroughly enjoyed your company today. This has been an amazing conversation, and spending this time with you has been such a pleasure. So before I let you go, would you mind sharing your online presence and your preferred means of contact for those who wish to learn more about you or hire you or just lurk around and follow you on social media?
Yeah, sure. They can go to my website, which is richhabets.com. And habits, it's not the habits word as an American, but with an E instead of the I, right? So richhabets.com. I got a lot of podcasts there. I got some articles that people can read. Maybe that helps them, and they can see what I do and how I do it. And well, they can always look me up on Facebook, just on Rich Habets. I'm not big on Instagram or any other platforms. I'm on Twitter, also Rich_Habets. And if people have questions, I'm more than willing to interact. So be my guest.
Well, thank you. Well, listen, everybody, as we conclude today's episode reluctantly, because I've still got questions. In fact, honestly, Rich, I would love for you to come back in the new year if you feel like you still have things that you'd like to share. Just let me know and I will invite you back.
That sounds amazing. I love these conversations. I would love to do these for the rest of my life. So
Terrific. I'll send you a note and we'll get you back on in the new year. But listen, everybody, if you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. And the reason I ask is your input is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to go find Rich Habets on the web and connect with him. And thank you for tuning in. Rich, thank you. This has been an enormous pleasure. And I'm not just spouting that for the heck of it. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
yeah, me too. Thank you, Denise, for the invitation.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.